All right, my friends, there are a couple different ways to go about this. I'm going to kind of stick to something that's going to end up turning into a bit of a formula for this section. So if this is more complicated than what you did and we get the same answer anyway, then just still try to pay attention. Anyway, this is an example of an arithmetic sequence, and let's talk about how you can tell you're dealing with an arithmetic sequence. So basically, in an arithmetic sequence, they just keep adding the same constant value every time to jump from one term to the next consecutive term. So from 4 to 7, they added 3. From 7 to 10, in this case, they added 3 again. From 10 to 13, yep, added 3. And from 13 to 16, added 3. So the way that you could write the function rule in probably one of the more complicated manners for the nth term would be to just show how many of those 3's have you added to the initial value to get to the term you're on. So for example, the 7 is your second term. So a sub 2 means second term. So your second term was found by taking that initial value of 4 and adding 1 3 to it, if that makes sense. And then your third value, which is 10, how did we get the 10? Well, you took your first value and you had added 2 3's by then. So you took the 4 and you had added 2 3's. How did you get the 13? One way to describe it is you started out with a 4, and by the time you had gotten to that fourth term, you had added 3 3's. So here's a way to show the pattern. So, if I was to say, cool, how do you get to the 30th term? If you look at the pattern that's being established here, you could say, well, you'd start out with a 4 and you would add how many 3's? 29 of them. Yeah. So what's the pattern here? To get to any nth term, you'd start with that first term of 4 and you'd add how many 3's? Yeah, n minus 1 of them. So instead of 30, you had 29. Instead of 4, you had 3. You could see that how everything in the rule was staying the same except the number of 3's you were adding. So there you go. So one way to write that function rule would be to just say exactly that. Hey, here's the secret. Start out with a 4, and to get to any number of term, you just add that number minus 1 3's. That's the trick. And then you could always simplify it, right? You could always, I'm just going to underline it because that's one way to write your answer. And then if you simplified it by distributing and combining like terms, you get a sub n would equal 3n and then plus 1. There you go. And nobody really cares which version you put for your answer. So good job if you got that. That's a nice way to get started. So before we go on to the next example, let's make sure that everybody's good with the definition of an arithmetic sequence. And I will tell you the definition we're about to write is not textbook. It's kind of more of a layman's term definition. But a sequence is considered arithmetic. Now notice it's spelled exactly like arithmetic, but in this context, you'd pronounce it arithmetic, okay? You'll sound funny if you say arithmetic, just so you know. Okay, it's considered arithmetic if, if there is a constant term actually, yeah, if there's a constant term, or not term, sorry, wrong word, constant value, that's what I meant. There we go. Constant value being added. Now this is going to have definitions within definitions. So that constant value being added, like in that example above, they just kept adding 3. We're going to refer to that constant value as the common difference. And they'll use a lowercase d to represent the common difference sometimes. So anyway, so that constant value is being added to each term to get the next consecutive term. Okay, so this definition, my friends, is the part, when we talked about what you're supposed to learn in this lesson, this definition is the recognized part. So how can you tell you're dealing with an arithmetic? This is how. There you go. Okay. So let's see if you can do what we did in the warm-up with these examples. So the directions say find a pattern for the nth term of each given sequence. And then D is left blank on purpose. So go ahead and see how example 1 treats you, and then check in with me in the next video. Good luck.